Hey, hey, I think I am live. Hi, I'm Audrey. I started 2 minutes early because I have a ton of information for you guys today, and we may not have time to finish it all. So hopefully we do. While we're waiting on people to join us, or while we're giving time for a few people to join us, I'll introduce myself. If you are catching this on the replay and you already know who I am, go ahead and fast forward, I don't know, like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. I am Audrey Christie. I'm a holistic wellness practitioner. I see people live in person in Corinth, Texas. I work with Pure Synergy Wellness Studio there. I also see people virtually from all over the world. So if you're not in my corner of North Texas, that's okay too. I help people get to the root cause of their issue or their chronic illness or disease and heal it. So we don't do Band-Aids. I use a holistic approach. I have a master's degree in nursing and education, and a whole host of other certifications in homeopathics and crystal healing and energy medicine and almost in herbology and all sorts of other certifications. I primarily follow the theory that optimal health is an experience of the body, mind, and spirit. So my solutions and recommendations are all really, really rooted in science and functional medicine. I don't peddle things that don't work. No snake oil here. This is real deal stuff. So I help my clients get off their blood pressure meds, turn around their diabetes, lose weight, get pregnant, get rid of acne, psoriasis, dandruff, autoimmune disease, dermatitis, chronic pain, Alzheimer's, mood disorders, seizures, autism, epilepsy, you name it, acid reflux, lots and lots of things. One of the biggest questions I get asked is, what is the difference between seeing me as a holistic wellness practitioner and seeing like a traditional allopathic MD? And the difference is that if you have high blood pressure and you go to your doctor, they're going to put you on a blood pressure medication and you'll likely be on that medication forever, right? However, what I do is say, okay, let's find out why you have high blood pressure and let's fix the root cause and get rid of the blood pressure medication and just be healthy and happier ever after. And so you might say, okay, yeah, so fine for blood pressure, but what about like headaches? Those are totally normal, but I get them all the time. Well, no, they're not. So while going to an allopathic physician, it may land you with, let's take Tylenol, which is totally fine if that's the route you choose to take. Me as a holistic wellness practitioner says, okay, headaches aren't normal, seasonal allergies aren't normal, let's fix this at the root cause, and that way we can move forward and get rid of them rather than relying on a Band-Aid, something to cover the symptoms. So I hope everyone is having a really fantastic Wednesday. Today we're going to talk about fertility. We're going to touch on hormone basics because it's hard sometimes to understand some of the stuff I'm going to tell you about fertility if you don't have a basic understanding of some of the hormone stuff. We're also going to talk about hormone troubles and how to spot them before you're at that stage where you're like, hey, I'm trying to get pregnant and I can't. So we're going to talk about that too. So let me have a sip of my water. Awesome. Hormones are a combination of a bunch of things, but they are fat and cholesterol based, which is important to know. And when I say fat and cholesterol based, I mean part of their molecular chain. So if you think of like a chain, part of their molecular chain is hormone, of a hormone is cholesterol and fat. As you might have guessed, there are lots of different types of hormones. You may even know a few. There's broad categories of hormones. There's androgen hormones, and these, the list I'm giving you, by the way, is not an exclusive list, but for the purposes of what we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you what you need to know. So there's androgens. An example of an androgen hormone would be testosterone. And so you might wonder, like, why does testosterone come into a fertility talk? Because it's traditionally thought of as being a male hormone. But actually, both sexes produce it. It's produced in the adrenal gland, and its primary function, or one of its main functions, is to stimulate muscle and bone growth. I'm bumping my crystals here. Also, there's estrogen. And some people think of estrogen as opposite of testosterone. It's traditionally thought of as a exclusively female hormone, but again, it's actually produced in both sexes. In both men and women, it's part of the cycle that grows long bones. So that would be like your femur or your thigh bone. And then of course in women it's involved in menstruation and fertility and has a lot more functionality, or a lot different functionality than it does for men. And then there's a third class, and I really only mention them when I talk about fertility because they have a really important part of the synthesis of other hormones. And so they're called vitamins, but they're not actually vitamins. They're fat-soluble hormone bases, but they're vitamin K, K, A, D, and E, vitamins K, A, D, and E. And so I always say vitamin K because it's an easy way to remember them. But your body needs them for building healthy cells and producing hormones, which is why they're included in our conversation today. Y'all, I have worked out 3 times today. I'm so amped up. I don't know if it's like the new moon or like what's going on. So I'm going to keep sipping my water because I am dying of thirst. Okay, so hormones and the vitamins K, A, D, and E are really, really important for all sorts of different things. And you of course also need essential minerals like magnesium and calcium and zinc, because that's really, really important to help optimize levels of the vitamins and the hormones, and it helps your immune system, but we'll talk about that on a different day. So it's really important, like I said, to have a base understanding of what those hormones are and how they help your body. It's also really important to know that women in particular have to have a balance of something called estrogen and progesterone. And they have to be counterbalanced, right? Because when estrogen gets too high, you get something called estrogen dominance, which leads to bloating and decreased sex drive and irregular periods and headaches and mood swings. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail here in just a minute. But then another important aspect for you to know is that that estrogen has multiple parts, okay? It's not just estrogen. There's good estrogen and bad estrogen, or a better way to put it may be healthy estrogen and unhealthy estrogen. Healthy estrogen is from your ovaries, right? And it's either from your ovaries in a neutral state or from ovaries in a pregnancy state. And those are 2 different variations of estrogen. And it's what gives women curves and breasts and youthful looking skin. Unhealthy estrogen, or bad estrogen, comes from fat cells. So it can be absorbed from the body. It's stored in fat cells in the body. And it can be released when fat cells are used in the body. It can also be absorbed in the body from external sources. Unhealthy estrogen causes bulges, usually in the belly area. So excess belly fat, that spare tire. And this isn't a new concept, right? Farmers have known this for years and years and years. It's why they use synthetic estrogen to fatten their cattle for slaughter. And so a lot of times I get a little pushback about this. And women or clients which my clients are predominantly women, will a lot of times say, well, I don't take estrogen, so I don't have too much. But really the truth is kind of sad because we're doing it to ourselves. But excess estrogen comes from what you put in your body for about 90% of people. It comes from what you put on your body, what you put in your body, and a few, other sources around you. So of the good estrogen and the bad estrogen, the healthy and unhealthy estrogen, there are like 3 branches, 3 subcategories. One is estradiol, which is the good, healthy estrogen produced by the ovaries. And that is the estrogen that's produced when you're not pregnant. So it's ovaries in a non-pregnant state. Then there's estrone, which is sort of the opposite, right? It's the bad estrogen, the unhealthy estrogen that's produced and stored in fat cells. And then there is the estriol, which is the type, again, produced by the ovaries, so good estrogen, but it's only produced by the ovaries during pregnancy. So healthy estrogen always comes from our ovaries, gives us curves, gives us breasts, gives us nice looking skin. Unhealthy estrogen always comes from our fat cells or external sources. Causes belly fat, causes inflammation, which then branches off to a whole host of other issues. So now that we have our hormone basics, how do we spot trouble? How do we spot trouble before they start? How do we spot trouble before we get to where we're, oh my God, I've been trying to get pregnant for 1 year or 2 years or 5 or 10 years and I can't. So how do we know what we're experiencing is 1, not normal, and it's 2, if it's related to our hormones. And there's a whole lot more that goes into it than what I can give you in this format, but here are some cues, right? Inflammation, we talk about that a lot. Irregular absent periods, that's a big sign. Hot flashes, no matter your age, that's a big sign. Waking up in the middle of the night, sort of the telltale sign is if you wake up, around 3 a.m. That's a sign that there's something hormonally wrong or off balance if you're waking up at 3 a.m. routinely. And And also, here's a clue. If you're waking up, if you fall asleep and stay asleep, till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then you're wide awake and can't go back to sleep, generally that's a progesterone dip, which causes a quick flash of estrogen dominance and leads to that sleep-wake cycle being messed up. So inflammation, irregular or absent periods, hot flashes. Hi, April. Thanks for joining me. We're talking about fertility and sort of lack of fertility. And right now we're talking about estrogen and how do we spot trouble before it starts. So cues to spotting trouble before it starts: inflammation, irregular or absent periods, hot flashes, waking up in the middle of the night, and then belly fat. That's a big, big clue. So especially those of us who carry our weight in our lower halves, so below your belly button, if you're pear-shaped, right? That is a sign of estrogen being out of balance. If you're having difficulty getting pregnant, that's a big sign that you have hormone issues. If you've been told you have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, then it's gone beyond. You've ignored the whispers and the knocks at the door, and that's the Mack truck saying, there is something wrong, fix it, right? That is a major sign of a hormone imbalance. If you're having migraines, that's a sign. Oftentimes migraines can be fixed with magnesium, but that's for another day. Sometimes they're also a sign of hormone imbalance. If you're someone who gets dark facial hair, even if you have dark head hair, so obviously if me, blonde, had dark facial hair, you might think something was up, right? But if you're somebody who has dark hair and you have to wax your upper lip or your chin, that's a cue that you're experiencing a hormone imbalance. If you have thyroid troubles, and I encourage everyone to have their doctor check their thyroid and then say thank you, and then take that lab report, because usually thyroid trouble is indicated much earlier than what the traditional physician will pick up on. It's because the range for normal is a much broader spectrum than, say, LabCorp's normal range would be. So just because it says normal limits on the lab report doesn't mean that you don't need to look at the other labs and sometimes some more in-depth labs. Oftentimes the doctors just run a T3, T4 level or a TSH level, and that's not enough. You actually need TSH, total T4, free and reverse T3. And if you have a family history of thyroid trouble, then I always recommend thyroid antibodies, because those can show signs of thyroid disease like 10 years before you have physical symptoms. So you can start heading that off and healing that at the root before you're removing thyroids and before you're taking synthetic thyroid medication and all of that stuff. I got off on a little bit of tangent. But if you have thyroid trouble, or if you have symptoms of thyroid trouble, have it checked. Then take that lab report, tell the doc thanks, take it to a holistic wellness practitioner. You can send it to me. I do those virtually all over the world. Or find a functional medicine practitioner like myself in your area and have them take a look at it. So say you have one or all of those problems caused by bad estrogen. Again, thyroid trouble, migraines, spare tire weight around the middle or pear-shaped, inflammation, irregular absent periods, hot flashes, waking up in the middle of the night, all of those things. Say you have those problems caused by bad estrogen. So where does that bad estrogen come from? Number of things, right? It's actually like 8 things. And I'm just going to sort of skim over them and give you an overview, and then the full episode will be out tomorrow on iTunes. But first thing, carbs and sugar. Our bodies make more estrogen. Our estrogen increases when you eat too many processed carbohydrates. What happens is the insulin is excreted from the pancreas in response to the sugar and processed carbs, which it then stores that sugar and carbs as fat, which our body uses to make more unhealthy estrogen from those fat cells, more estrone, right? Another thing you cause excess estrogen with is pesticides. So if you're eating a lot of non-organic produce, non-organic herbs and spices, if you're using non-organic essential oils, if you're drinking non-organic coffee, these are all ways you're adding to the bad estrogen. Things like pesticides, for example, they have something called xenoestrogens in them, and they're a subcategory or a subclassification of endocrine disruptors, and they specifically mimic estrogen in your body, which it doesn't mimic the estrogen from your ovaries. So it's a bad estrogen. Another place, if you're drinking from plastic containers or heating food in plastic containers, that mimics estrogen in the body. and confuses the receptors for the good estrogen. And it can actually swoop in and sort of take your natural estrogen's place on those receptors, which causes buildup and estrogen dominance. Just like you can get bad estrogen from consuming I'm sorry, they're working outside of the window, so hopefully y'all can't hear that. But if you're consuming bad estrogen in the form of pesticides from non-organic produce, another place you can get it is non-healthy or non-organic meat and poultry. About 80% of the cattle in the US are raised with artificial hormones. They help increase their growth rate and body mass. Just like I talked to you earlier about farmers have known for a long time that bad estrogen fattens up your midsection. They use it to fatten up their cattle. But this can lead to estrogen dominance, ovarian cysts, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, cervical cancer, just to name a few things. Another major place that bad estrogen comes from is soy. And I've warned you guys about this one before. Avoid soy containing products. Stop eating tofu, even if you're vegan. Get rid of the soy protein shakes. Read the labels. Make sure all the soy is out. Soy contains isoflavones, which are changed in the body to phytoestrogens, which, just like xenoestrogen that I talked about before, acts like the hormone estrogen in the body and leads to estrogen dominance. And then this is the one that I usually get a lot of pushback on, but alcohol. So what alcohol does is increase the speed and processing of androgens and estrogens in your liver. It's why men who are heavy drinkers often get gynecomastia, and women who are heavy drinkers get what I call an estrogen belly. It's a wine belly or a keg belly. It's just a big bloated belly that stays all the time. It's from drinking too much alcohol because your body is speeding the processing of the androgens into estrogens in the liver. And so you end up suffering the symptoms of estrogen dominance. And I talked a little bit about plastic containers. Avoid microwaving your plastic containers. Guys, you shouldn't be buying any water or sodas. You shouldn't be buying sodas anyways, but any water in plastic containers. And certainly, if you do have to buy water in a plastic container, don't ever, ever, ever leave it in the car and then drink that warm water out of the car. Heated plastic is very, very bad. It causes the plastic to release those chemicals into the water, and then you drink it, and then you can imagine what happens next. Okay, so the last thing I'll talk about, because I could go on and on and on about the things that cause excess estrogen, is the topical products that you use. There are tons and tons of endocrine disruptors in topical products. I recommend, if you have a smartphone, I know most people have smartphones, right? But if you have a smartphone, get the app called Get Dirty. It's free. And you use the camera and you just scan the barcode and it will tell you which products, topical products. Now, it's not for food, so it's for things like dish soap and laundry detergent and all of those things. And yes, you can totally make your own laundry detergent, but who has time to do that, right? So get the Get Dirty app, scan the labels, figure out which products have the least endocrine or no endocrine disruptors. They're rated on a scale of 0 to 10, and 10 is like the most toxic. Below a 5 is what they like have a green light. So aim for those. This is really, really important for you. It's important for your parents. It's important for your kids, males and females. A lot of people think, oh, it's just soap. It doesn't matter if I wash my hands with soap, with this particular soap, or if I use shampoo, or if I use, like this super high smelling detergent or dryer sheets. However, it does. Anything that comes in contact with your skin is absorbed into the bloodstream. Anything. So keep that in mind when you're piling on all the products. Okay, so now we've talked about what the symptoms are. We've talked about how we get there, like how we end up with excess estrogen. And so let's talk about what the estrogen does. What the estrogen does when it gets into your body. Sorry, lots of noise outside, losing my train of thought. Well, first of all, it causes PMS. It also causes excess fat around the midsection, especially around the hips. Hi, Krissa. Thanks for joining us. We are in the point of our talk on fertility where we're talking about what does bad estrogen do in the body. So it causes PMS. It causes excess fat around the midsection, around the hips. Again, that pear shape. It causes difficulty losing weight. You get gallstones, varicose veins, uterine fibroids, cervical dysplasia, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, PCOS, infertility, which is going to be the focus here in a minute, facial hair, breast, uterine, prostate cancer. In short, it causes estrogen dominance, which leads to all of those things I just talked about. Now, I realize that my audience is mostly women. Just a second. But men can also have excess estrogen. In fact, I see it a lot. And it causes a lot of the same problems, obviously minus the female organ problems, right? The female reproductive stuff. But in men, it causes prostate cancer, it causes inflammation, it causes spare tires, it causes gynecomastia, it causes mood disorders. So it's really something important for both men and women to look at. So we know what it causes, but what the heck do we do about it, right? Because I'm not going to leave you, great, now what do we do? So the number one thing you can do is eat a high fat, high in good fats, low in carbohydrates, moderate protein diet. And the reason why I say moderate protein is because a lot of people jump on the low carb bandwagon and they eat nothing but meat and dairy all day and all night. Well, meat is protein, obviously. So once you go over a certain threshold of protein, which is different for every body. So if you need help figuring out what that threshold is for your body, let me know. But your protein threshold is different for every person. So if you eat all meat and you get rid of all of your carbohydrates and you're not eating enough fat, then your body will take protein, because our bodies are wicked cool machines, right? It takes the protein and converts it into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. Don't do that. You don't want to eat high fat, you don't want to eat low fat, high carb, or low protein, or high protein, high fat, low carb. It needs to be high fat, low carb, moderate protein diet full of vegetables. Second thing to do is to take care of your liver. The liver is not primarily, but is the primary thing that breaks down estrogen. So alcohol consumption, drug use, yes, that means even the medicinal marijuana user, over-the-counter medications, prescription medications, all of these things lead, or if you're carrying a lot of weight around your midsection and you have fatty liver disease, or any other factor that impairs healthy liver function, it also spurs estrogen buildup. So take care of your liver. I mean, you can actually take milk thistle daily to help offset some of that. Yay, Krista, I'm so glad I can help. This is definitely the talk for you. And then the episode on iTunes tomorrow will dig a little bit deeper into hormone imbalances and some of the science behind it and some of the things to do. So we talked about eating high fat, low carb, moderate protein. You also want to take care of your liver. You want to improve your gut health. So I should really have included like another section for supplements, but you want to supplement for gut health and really for overall health. Bacterial imbalance in your gut compromises digestion, of course, but also compromises the elimination of excess estrogen from the body via your digestive tract, right? It's like backup for the liver. The supplement you want to add for that, of course, is a good quality probiotic. You want to take 30 to 50 billion cells a day, and that's kind of a maintenance dose. So if you're experiencing a lot of problems, you probably want to go higher than that 50 billion CFU a day. You don't have to take that forever, but you do want to take a higher dose in order to get things started. And there are some really specific strains that you can look for to further enhance that. So if you guys have questions, then let me know. But everyone's human suit is a little bit different, so it's hard for me to make a blanket recommendation like that. And then, of course, you want to make sure you have enough zinc, magnesium, vitamin B6, as well as other essential vitamins and nutrients. That supports the breakdown and elimination of estrogen, but also aids the body in the function of the enzymes responsible for conversion of estrogen as well. You want to be mindful of what you consume, obviously, that's what we're talking about, and how you consume it. So those xenoestrogens that I talked about a few minutes ago, they come from plastics, they come from cosmetics, they come from birth control pills, and they contain xenoestrogens that mimic the good estrogen. You can find them in our water, our soil, our food products. So use caution, read the labels, avoid soy. There's a higher concentration of some types of estrogen in certain types of products. So really watch out. I can't say enough. Don't eat soy, don't eat edamame, don't eat tofu, don't drink soy milk, don't avoid soy-based protein shakes. Just start taking a look at your labels and you'd be surprised what's in there. The caveat to that is that you can have fermented soy. So like soy sauce is okay because it's fermented. If you guys have questions about that, I can get into the science about that in the comments. And then, of course, one big part of this is managing your stress. And I always like to talk about stress because stress is a perception, but your body responds to it as if it were a physical injury or disease. But stress is just a perception, so you can choose what stresses you out or not. But when you perceive a high level of stress, it sets off a biologic cascade that steals progesterone to manufacture that stress hormone you've probably heard of called cortisol. Cortisol leaves an excess of estrogen, also increases your belly fat tremendously, and then, of course, wrecks your sleep. And then poor sleep, it's just a nasty cycle, right? Causes a reduction in melatonin, which is a helper hormone that helps protect against estrogen dominance. So you want to make sure that you aren't, setting off that cascade that causes you not to sleep at night. By the way, most people need 7 or 8 hours of sleep at night. If you're not getting that, usually that's step one to fixing all the other problems, because it's hard to do anything and do it well and notice what your body needs and all of those things unless you're getting the sleep you need at night. Okay, so we've covered all that stuff, right? So let's talk about making babies. Some of the symptoms that go along with what we're talking about here, like estrogen dominance, overestrogen production, or having too much bad estrogen in your body, are some of the primary causes that cause infertility. So irregular periods, hot flashes, inflammation, waking up in the middle of the night, belly fat, PCOS, migraines, dark facial hair, thyroid trouble. If you're eating a bad diet, you're not producing enough progesterone because you've got way too much estrogen, especially if you're trying to usually unsuccessfully lose weight by eating a low-fat, high-carb diet. So it's really, really important to get all of these things under control in order for your body to be able to host a baby, to have the hormones it needs to create the eggs and fertilize them and allow them to attach, and all of those things. Again, our hormones are molecules that are chained together by fat and cholesterol. So if you don't consume enough fat and healthy fats, your body will actually pull cholesterol from the endocrine system. Again, your body's magical at not letting you die despite what you're doing to it. And me too, everybody makes the same mistake. So I'm not like saying I'm doing it perfectly. But when your body pulls cholesterol from the endocrine system, it makes it really, really impossible for your body to maintain the levels of progesterone, estrogen, cortisol, DHEA, and testosterone that it needs to conceive and host or cook a baby for 9 months. Probably the most common thing that people come to me with is, I can't get pregnant, I have PCOS. Generally, the signs that go along with PCOS, and most people, have been diagnosed this by the doctor, but generally they're overweight. That's usually the first thing, they're overweight. And when, not just overweight, but their weight is carried in the midsection, the lower half of the body, they're a distinct pear, maybe an apple. A lot of times they've tried to lose weight and they can't, or it doesn't last. Usually they have facial hair troubles, like I said, dark hair on the upper lip. They may have irregular or absent menstruation. And this happens, to be frank, because of starch, sugar, caffeine, increased androgen production, which is a form of testosterone, or vice versa. Testosterone is a form of androgen, and that leads to the physical manifestation of PCOS. So what do you do to fix it? Pretty well the same things we've been talking about. You eat fat, coconut oil, olive oil, high quality animal fat, seafood, egg yolks. It just can't happen. It's not biologically possible to conceive without a proper hormone balance. And in order to have that, you have to have adequate amounts of fat. Again, fat and cholesterol increase the production of healthy hormones, including thyroid hormones. It's the foundation of cellular function. It helps us digest and maintain the levels of all those fat-soluble vitamins I talked about, K, A, D, and E, which are also essential to the formation of a healthy baby, as well as to mom and dad's health, frankly. And then, a lot of people say, okay, well, great. I've eaten this way for 90 days. Usually 90 days is the shortest amount of time we've gone from, holy crap, I can't have a baby, to, oh my God, I'm pregnant. But you know, so I've done it. I've eaten this way for 90 days. I've taken all the precautions to get rid of bad estrogens. So now I've conceived a baby and I can go back to eating like crap. And that's not actually true. You got to keep having all that healthy, good fat to have a healthy baby. Okay. So if you guys take these considerations to heart and you implement all this stuff, don't think that once, baby is there, you can just turn it around and stop all of these things that you're doing, because you can't. You got to keep cooking that baby. So I talked for a long time, 29 minutes now, but to wrap it up, balancing your hormones is really, really simple. And often no synthetic hormone replacement, nothing crazy required. Eat fat. Don't eat sugar. Sleep, move, give your body the supplements it needs to be healthy. And guys, if you can't do this alone, if you can't look at these steps and do this alone, then get help. A lot of times people try and then they stumble or struggle with something simple like food cravings. And usually that takes like 1 appointment and 2 supplement adjusts to fix, and no more food cravings, right? It's very, very simple. So please, please, please let me know if you have any questions. I'm always here to answer them. Thank you so much for listening to me talk for 30 minutes now. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday. And a great rest of your week. Namaste. Trying to end the live video.